Made of cyclopean stones, the Tullianum was a prison without bars. There was nothing whatsoever to prevent a prisoner from walking out into the open air. Yet Simeon did not escape. It was a perverse honour to be held in such a place, where for centuries Romans had executed kings, generals, and noble traitors. A mark of respect. As the breaking dawn illuminated the cell, Simeon began to pace, repeating and polishing newly memorized phrases until the language was clear in his mind. His friends had often pleaded with him to set the words down, but he had always deferred. "There will be time," he'd assured them. But there was no more time. 59 years old on the day of his death and still learning only through mistakes the story of his life. Always he had to stumble in order to see the path. One of his guards entered. "Guest to see you." By law, Simeon was allowed no light after dark, no writing instruments, but out of kindness his guards allowed him one visitor. Not his love, nor his child. No, it was a man Simeon had spent much of his life cursing, a fellow Jew called Saul. Simeon and Saul were a study in opposites. Tall but stooped, Simeon was bald on top with a long white beard, whereas Saul's thinning hair was clipped close, his greying beard neatly squared. Simeon exuded calm, perpetually smiling in the face of sadness. Short, Saul suffered all a short man's failings, temper, arrogance, envy, bombast, and Simeon had never understood the other man's disdain for women. Yet a man in prison does not sneer at company. "Good morrow, my friend." Saul had no time for pleasantries. "I am to be executed. Can you believe it? I am to die today." "You as well," he added in afterthought. Having expected it for weeks, Simeon took the news philosophically. "Did they say how?" "As a citizen I shall lose only my head. You—" Momentarily Saul focused on someone other than himself. "I'm very sorry to say, old friend, that you will be given the death of a slave." Simeon closed his eyes. Had it come to this? The rest of his flock sold into slavery, including his other half and their darling child, far from what he had imagined when he'd set sail from Judea. Once again he'd failed to protect his family, and now Simeon faced the unthinkable. Crucifixion. I must brave it as a man with not only an example to set, but one to follow. Turning his mind from his own fate, he said, "But why are you to die? They can't be charging you with the fire. You were already in custody." "I'm to die for my Judean crimes." Saul's bitterness was acid enough to taste in the air. "It is a pretext. The crowds are becoming increasingly violent, and Caesar needs someone to blame for the fire. Who better than we troublesome Hebrews?" Simeon had no time for railing. Lowering his voice, he asked, "Marcus is here?" "Yes," Saul sniffed. "You know I disapprove. Judaism is for the Jews." That was not his message. Simeon called to his guards. "Gentlemen, Caesar has spoken. I must die today. If you wish to hear the end to my tale, I must speak quickly." Entering, the 2 Romans sat on either side of the door, their wooden staves across their laps. Saul sat in his accustomed place, closing his eyes to behold the story as he dreamed it should be. Framed in the light from the doorway, Simeon remained standing to recite his story, careful to get each word right. "And the soldiers led him away into the hall called Praetorium, and they called together the whole band, and they clothed him in purple and plaited a crown of thorns." Just outside the cell, the young man called Marcus crept forward. He was not Judean, but from the Italian region of Picenum, with blonde hair, freckles, and a pugnacious nose. Taking up a post beside the door, he began making frantic shorthand notes upon a wax tablet, preserving Simeon's words forever and ever.